Welcome to Mustard Seed Homesteading. My name is Megan, and if you're new here, welcome. In today's video, I'm going to be taking 25 pounds of beets and turning it into a powder, also known as beetroot powder. I've recently added this to my daily regimen of nutrition supplements, and I absolutely love it for its nutritional value that it has. I'm going to share some of the benefits of beets, but I'm also going to show you how to turn it into a powder. So let's get started. So I want to give a quick disclaimer. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a dietitian, and I'm not going to pretend to be. I'm just someone that wants to have optimal health and not spend a ton of money to have it. So as I've done research on beets, and I do plan to share the two resources that I found in the description below, I've learned that they have a lot of wonderful nutrition value to them. I'm just going to say a few of them from my computer because I don't have it memorized, but some of them is iron, calcium, potassium, and magnesium. And it also helps with inflammation, which is something that I personally deal with. The other wonderful thing about beets is they're not super expensive. I purchased 25 pounds of beets from Azure Standard, and I'll share the link of Azure Standard below because you can buy it in bulk for a lot less. But I purchased 25 pounds for $33.08 before tax and shipping. That is a whole lot less expensive than purchasing bottles of supplements that, I don't know about you, but my supplements keep going up in price and I don't like it. So another way that you can preserve your beets is not just making a powder. You can can them, you can pickle them, and you can also freeze them. Now, what I'm doing today is I'm turning it into a powder. Now, you can dehydrate them by using a dehydrator or your oven to dehydrate, but I invested in a Harvest Right freeze dryer about a year and a half ago or so, and that's how I'm going to show you how I preserve my beets into a powder.
So here is an up-close look at my beets, completely peeled and cut up in cubes. And I want you to see what they look like before we move on to the next step. And I'll explain to you why we cut them up in cubes in order to freeze dry them easier to make our powder.
Now, the first thing that you want to do is you want to peel your beets. Now, you can use those peels for other purposes. Just look up some ways that you can use them. But what I did was I peeled my beets and then I cut them up into small pieces like this. Now, the reason I cut these up into small pieces is because for this video, we're going to be freeze drying our beets to make a powder. And so I plan to put them into my food processor. You can also use a blender, whatever it is that you have on hand at home. But the reason I do this for my freeze dryer is one, it cuts down the time on freeze drying, but also it eliminates the possibility of having moisture into my beets when I'm ready to process it again to turn into a powder. Because if you look at these pieces, while they're pretty small, they're pretty thick and for the freeze dryer, and they do retain moisture a lot more than if I were to put it in a food processor. So I'm going to show you how I do that right now. Okay, so I'm just going to be placing all of these beets into the food processor. Okay, so as you can see, I plan to blend it again, but it turned it into a much finer, broken up pieces of beets. So I'm just gonna kind of move it around so that the pieces on the top that didn't get blended as much can get blended well. Now, this is what you want to see when you blend up your beets into smaller pieces. And now we're going to put these on the trays to put into the freeze dryer. Okay, so I have all of my trays lined up. Now I'm just gonna take out the middle blade here. And I usually use like a little spatula to help get the sides and make sure I get everything out. But all I'm gonna do is just fill up these trays. Now you don't wanna fill them past this rim because it could overflow in the freeze dryer. Okay, so now I'm gonna finish blending up the rest of the beets and fill the trays, and then I'll show you putting them into the freeze dryer. Now I do want to show you the beets that were in the food processor, how much smaller they are blended in there, so that when they go into the freeze dryers, you can see not only will it save time, but then you're less likely to retain moisture as opposed to being larger pieces. Now stay to the end because I'm going to share different ways that you can use beets, and one that's really fun, especially for the ladies. So here's my Harvest Right freeze dryer. I have the medium size. It has 4 slots, and I'm going to place each one of them in there so it can start the process of freeze drying. Now I know the lighting's not the best. We're in my garage. That's where the freeze dryer is. The 15 minutes to cool the chamber is already done. And so now all we're gonna do is hit the button continue. It's gonna freeze dry, and then I'll come back and I will show you how we're gonna make powder.
So here's an up close look at the product now that it is out of the freeze dryer. It almost looks like it's still wet, but as you can see when I grab my spatula here and dig in, that it's very crispy, and that's because it was frozen and then dried. And now there's absolutely no moisture in there, which allows us to be able to blend it into a powder. And you can also hear it as I rub it in between my fingertips. Now our next step is to blend this into our beautiful beetroot powder. And there you have a gorgeous, beautiful beetroot powder. Look how pretty that is. So now I'm going to empty this first set of 2 trays of powder into my mason jar and then move on to the last 2 trays to give you the final product at the end. So here's another look at the second set of trays that we just powdered. I'm going to scoop it up here with my spatula so that you can get another look from a different angle. And look at how beautiful that powder is. Now we're ready to use it in our kitchen. Okay, now we have finished completely preserving all of our beets, our 25 pounds of beets worth $33.08 before tax and shipping. Let's see how much that gave us. This is a half-gallon mason jar, which is almost pretty full. Then this one we just did, which is a quart, and this is completely full. And then this one is a pint, which is pretty much completely full. That's a lot of powder for $33.08 before tax and shipping. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be putting some articles down into the description about the benefits of beets, and I highly encourage you to look at that. But I also want to share, I did a little bit of research, and I want to share the price of organic, and these are organic beets, but the price of organic beet powder. So I have my computer here. I went on Amazon because that's just a real quick, easy place to get some ideas of prices. But you guys, look at that. Oh, it switched on me. Okay, look at that. You have the KOS brand. I don't know how to pronounce that. And I actually like that brand. I have coconut powder, coconut milk powder from this brand, but organic beetroot powder, a 12.7 ounce for $24.95. You guys, this is a half gallon, and that's not even all of the powder. And I only spent $33.08 before tax and shipping. We have Force Faction Total Beets Organic Beetroot Powder, a 15.9 ounce for $16.49. Then you have this one, an organic beetroot powder. That's a 4-pounder for $34.95. The 4-pounder is pretty good. But again, you guys, this is organic, half gallon, a quart and a pint of organic beetroot powder. You really cannot go wrong
with preserving your own beetroot powder. What I also did too, because I know that not everybody has a freeze dryer, I also listed 2 articles below on how to dehydrate your beets with a dehydrator, but also how you can dehydrate your beets with an oven. So I highly recommend that you look at those 2 sources also as another way to preserve. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, I'm also going to be leaving an article down on other ways that you can preserve your beets, not just making it into a powder. Now, another fun thing that I found is that you can do so many fun things with beets. So as far as the uses, you could obviously use it as a supplement. You can also put it in smoothies. You can put it in so many different types of foods and dinners and drinks. And so I found a really fun article, actually a website called yumly.com. And I'm also going to list that below. Now, all these websites or any information I listed below, I'm not affiliated with anybody. I don't know anyone. It's just information that I found to be very helpful for me that I want to share with all of you. But on this website, yumly.com, look, it gives you actual, let's see if I can get up close because that's just a beetroot smoothie, but they give you actual recipes on different ways of using beets. Like for instance, you can make a latte. I didn't know that you can make a latte. You can make a breakfast chia, a chocolatey beet, a butternut squash. You can add it to like a double chocolate beetroot cake, which if you think about it, instead of using those colored dyes that probably have horrible ingredients in it, all you need to use is the beetroot powder to add, and you can make a red velvet chocolate cake. I mean, the possibilities with beetroot powder is endless. Plus, you're getting all of the benefits of the nutrition and all the goodness that comes from it because it's a whole food. So I will have all of this information listed below in the description. I hope you find them very helpful. Now, the very last one I wanted to share, which for the ladies, I know you're going to really like this, and I actually want to try it myself, is you can make a beetroot powder blush. And if you also make your own lip balm, you can add this for color. I am going to be leaving a article or a link to somewhere where you can make a homemade blush. There's one that I found which was really cool. They would tell you how much of the beet powder. So if you wanted like a really light color pink, just add a tablespoon of beet powder. If you wanted a more of a mauve color or a darker color, you would just continue to add more of the beet powder to the other homemade products that you would mix in to make a blush. It's really cool. And I thought that you would really enjoy that, lady. So I am going to link that below and I hope you enjoy it. So I quickly want to share some of the other fun things that I have learned to powder in my freeze dryer is ginger, oranges, and turmeric, as well as lemon and limes. Now, these I use daily in my smoothies, but the lemon and lime powder I've used for fun in meals in the kitchen. And it's just a fun way to preserve and add extra flavor to things and extra nutrition to your everyday regimen of supplementation. So I hope by me showing you how I preserve my beetroot powder and how I make it and the benefits of it and also the fun uses of it encourages you now to make beetroot powder at home. Thank you for stopping by and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.